Thank you for the nice introduction. I've also got introduction slides for myself, so I'm going to repeat it all over again. Yeah. So the topic is engineering the second brain for AI-enabled technical leadership. And this sounds like a lot of buzzwords, but I'll go into it in a bit more personal way. So I'm going to start off by saying where I am. Close. I'll start off by saying, what I do and why is it important for me that this particular topic and how is it really going to help me in doing my daily job, right? So if you see here my profile, so I'm a senior director of engineering at ARM. I lead a team of around 200 plus engineers across Manchester, Sheffield, Cambridge, Bristol, Budapest, and Bangalore. I missed that out. Sorry to my Bangalore team if you're watching this, or if you will watch it in future. You're definitely very important. And so I deliver several strategic hardware products, including AI accelerators and other core IPs, which go into our SOCs, right? Into our SOCs, into our partner SOCs. So my teams work with a whole variety of partners across the globe. And so I think, we pull different nights and time zones, etc., to work with our strategic partners. I'm also the site lead of the ARM Bristol office. So this is something I've recently taken on, but I was one of the people who set the office up a couple of years back as well. So we have now, going from pretty much 3 or 4 of us, we are around 86 in a couple of years, which is great. And so I have an experience as a designer, a verification engineer, an architect. I've led various different functions in hardware architecture and hardware design flows. So I think my experience comes with a whole broad set of engineering exposure. So I won't say I've gone deep in, but I know enough to know when somebody is pulling the rug under my feet, right? When somebody, when my team says something, I know more than enough to say, okay, is this something that, I can trust and I can go behind? And in my kind of role, that is the most invaluable thing you can have. So I remember an earlier boss of mine telling me that don't ever have imposter syndrome because you don't have to know everything, but you need to know what you want to catch on to so that asks them to then dig it deep in, right? So you need to have that level of skill set. Then personally, I'm a mother of 3. So my boys are in university now. They're just finishing their first year. My daughter is finishing her A-levels. I have 2 dogs, and I love painting. I love pottery. I love hiking. I couldn't put everything down here. And I like doing a lot of DIY, and I also do a lot of vibe coding. Somebody mentioned vibe coding today morning, and I'm a huge fan of that. I have 5 vibe coding projects going on parallelly at the same time for personal stuff, right? So for me, the thing is wherever I can automate efficiency, be it personal, be it work, I'm on it, right? And that's what this talk is about. So now coming to a typical day in my life, I mean, there are many wonderful, folks out here, and I've seen the presentations in the morning, absolutely inspiring. It's been totally a wonderful day so far. And some of what I say might not be new for others, for many, but some might be interesting for others as well. So a day as an engineering director, what does it look like, right? It's absolute chaos. Morning till evening is chaos. Like every half an hour, I'm dealing with a different problem. I'm looking at roadmap for one IP. I'm solving critical problems here. I'm looking at milestones. So one thing I'm very particular on is my IPs have to meet their delivery date. In 5 years in ARM, I haven't missed once, right? So I have a reputation now to keep. Yeah. So that's become a big thing, unfortunately. If you've missed a couple, then it's fine. You've got one more. But then you've got a standard that you want to now keep up, right? And then you're looking at people because people are important. So some of the conversations are about people development, where somebody needs to develop or somebody is already doing well. How do you, encourage them on? A lot of mentoring. I do group mentoring. I do one-to-one mentorings. And then I'm working with business units. I'm working with architects. I travel to all my sites. So Manchester, Sheffield, Cambridge, India, all the places. Because more than anything else, I get a lot of energy by working with people. So when I go to the sites, and I'm invariably going out to the pub with my graduates, right? So, and we play Uno and we have a lot of fun. And that is my, and that's how I keep in touch. Because if I just rely on my people who report to me, I don't get the pulse of my organization. And I have so much fun playing with them because they're my kids' age, right? It's so much fun, right? Yeah. So that's kind of a day in my life, right? And what's important for success? So first and foremost, somebody was asking me over lunch, like, how do you keep this juggling? And as many of us, in fact, all of us in the room are doing, we are, balancing quite a lot of things in our life. So for me, one thing that's super important is working on priorities. I absolutely prioritize my day. I wake up in the morning and I say, okay, these are these escalations that are running. I need to reply to this person. I need to put this fire out. I need to follow up on this. I have a release coming in 2 days' time in this project, in that project, So there is a critical list of 5 things or something that needs to get done today. Everything else can take a back seat because you are not superhuman, right? You can only look at whatever is most important. Maybe what you have moved for the next day becomes most critical the next day. That's fine. I deal with it the next day, And then I also need to keep some time aside for longer term thinking. So I can't just keep putting out fires. Then all I'm doing is chasing my tail, right? I can't do that. I have to look at roadmaps. I have to look at what next in future. So right now during lunch break, there are a couple of roadmap discussions that I had to quickly, get involved in and, have my say in. And then I need to make time to stay on top of technology. So at the end of the day, I'm still an engineering director, right? The word engineering is there, so I shouldn't forget about that, right? So I need to make sure I go inside and I understand what my team is building, look at it, learn from it. And most of the time you find that the folks in your team, people who report to you, know far more than you about the subject that they're building than you, right? So every time you talk to them, you start digging in, it's exhilarating because you're learning something. You have something that they need and they have something that you need. So when we both acknowledge that and gain the most from it, every conversation is brilliant because I'm learning, right? And finally, maybe not finally, it should have been the first one, doing what is needed to ensure my sustainability and reliance, right? So I do a lot of yoga. I try never to miss my yoga, except for days like today when I'm traveling and I'm like sitting in the train saying, I wish I'd done my yoga, my back is paining, But meditation and the AI innovation projects that I mentioned before. And at the end of the day, what happens, right? So if you look at the landscape, you have a lot of things that you need to do in the day, a lot of context that you need to remember, a lot of information that you need to have, and you need to stay on top of all of this so that you know what is important, right? So that you know that you're not missing out something. So how do you handle it? I spoke about this priority. The second part is very important, trust, respect, and care. So for me, I want to have the feeling that people who report to me trust me, right? So we work on a trust basis, right? They trust me that I have their back. So invariably, I keep telling them, right? I'm either the shit umbrella, I keep the shit away from them, okay? Yeah. And the second thing is when things go right, it's great, the team has done it. But when things go wrong, it's okay, guys, I can take the blame. Right? I need to be there in front to take the, I don't say the blame, but to take the heat when things don't go exactly as expected. So if your team doesn't have that confidence in you, they're not going to work to their best. They're constantly trying to see how to protect their backsides, right? You don't want that. So that trust, respect, and care with your leadership team. So for each of my 6 or 7 projects, I have leaders, and they form my staff. And with that staff, I try very hard to keep up that relationship as much as possible. An expectation, like what I said, please, I don't expect myself to be perfect. I make mistakes, but I also judge where I want to compromise on. So right now, there are 3 things that I should have been doing, which I'm not doing. It's fine. It's a compromise. I'll apologize later, right? And keep learning. So that's one thing that, I was telling my husband as well, that I keep learning from mistakes, right? If I make a mistake at work, if I make a mistake with my children, I keep looking back and saying, where did I go wrong? And the other day I was having a conversation with somebody and I was asking the person, like, what do you think you've done wrong in this role? And they couldn't name one thing. And I said, see, that's a big red flag for me. How can you not have done anything wrong in 1 year? Right? So you need to constantly have that self-awareness, saying, what am I doing? How am I doing? How could I have done something better? Where could I have improved? If you don't look at where you're improving or where you need to improve, you're never going to grow, right? You're going to be stagnant at this place and you're never going to go to the next level, right? So that was a bit of the background, right? And now we come to the second brain. We switch track. We switch track from me and what I do and what matters to me to saying, why am I in this AI topic, okay? So when you look at AI, and if I see all my engineering teams, so they are spread across the UK, in Budapest, in Bangalore, in multiple different places. All the engineers are embracing AI, right? They're excited, they're looking at it, and I push them. So I have in different AI innovation projects, I have AI champions in each of my projects. I keep on top of it because it also helps me, really be in the thick of things, right? You don't want to be left behind in the race. You want to really know what the industry is talking about. So I also conduct some free webinars outside for anyone who is interested. But how does it actually help me as a leader? What you often find is every engineer is excited. It helps them to, let's say a designer, for instance. AI, I don't have to propagate the signal all the way up the hierarchy. Codex does it for me, yes. And I'm like, what does it do for me? It can't sit in my meetings. It can't answer my questions. It can't handle my escalations. I still have to work, the way I'm working, putting in all the hours in order to keep all of these balls juggling. So as an engineering leader, where is AI in the picture? And this is when I started thinking, okay, what can I do with AI to really make a difference in my day-to-day life? And this slide is very interesting because I really wanted to point out that this presentation is not just from me. It's from 3 people, right? There are 3 people who have contributed massively. So first is Bill. Bill is my boss. He's a VP of systems. He was just chatting to me in one of our one-to-ones, and he and I have these interesting chats. We just go off-piste and we talk about something random and come back 5 minutes and say, oh shit, we didn't discuss the project topics. Okay. which is good because it kind of keeps you on your toes because you're actually discovering new things. And so he said there's this concept of second brain, and for, this is for engineering leadership, let's try it out. And he started working with it. I started finding out what it is. And we realized that the graduate, Edward Cleaver, he's the other co-author of this paper, of this presentation. So he had joined ARM a couple of years back, and he was already looking at it in ARM, right? So he was trying to figure out what this is and how it can work. And so I said, okay, I told Edward, when I went to Sheffield, he works in Sheffield, and I said, can you just sit with me and help me get set up? So within 2 hours, he was like all over the place, and I said, okay, take my keyboard, and like, I don't want you to keep telling me what to do. Right? So he set up the system for me, and then I've been working on it, looking at it, asking these, both of these guys. So these 2 are the ones who are pioneering it with me, right? And we've been, feeding off each other on what this actually means. So what I wanted to say here is AI is such a leveler. Somebody mentioned it today morning, right? It's such a leveler. So from the VP of our organization to the graduate who's just joined in, and to me, who's there in between trying to make all of this, make sense of all of this, all of us are using this, and all of us can do it at the same level. There is no difference between any of us, right? But what our experience brings it is, how are we using it for our own use cases, okay? Now let me describe what is the second brain concept all about. We go now a bit more into the technical details, and let's see how interesting I can get. Now so if you look at AI, right? So AI is getting increasingly capable, but what it sometimes lacks is a work context, right? So its performance depends upon how much does it know about you. So for example, in this presentation today, I have spoken so much about me. So all of you in this room know far more about me than any ChatGPT engine that I can bring up, right? And for me to tell it what matters to me, how it matters, what is important, etc., I can tell that in the chat window. I open another chat window, it would have forgotten half the context, or it wouldn't know half the context. I'll have to repeat this all over again, right? So the question is never about can AI answer something. It can answer it, but does it know us well enough? Does it know my work well enough? Does it know my context well enough in order to do a good job of it? So the leadership problem, like what we have discussed, and that's why I wanted to set the context a bit, right? So that because the leadership problem is that our work is completely scattered, right? So I have escalations in Slack, via emails, via Jira, in Confluence. I have meeting notes that my team takes. I have reports, monthly reports that are stored in Confluence and SharePoints, and different teams store things in different places, and I actually need all of that data. So the other day I was trying to write a report for my boss, and I was like, oh, this one is in that SharePoint directory here, or I need to ask this person for that report that happened last month so I can get out the exact dates. See, I know the overall stuff. I know what's happening in the team, but I can't keep on top of the dates for 7 or 8 projects. It's not feasible, and each of these dates are moving, right? So I need to constantly find out where things are, how things are, and that is a leadership problem, right? Now the hidden tags. So every time, like what I mentioned, every time I now want to get AI to do something, I have to give it the whole set of backgrounds. Yeah. Let's move on quickly. I don't know how much time I have left, but I want to get to the concept fast. So the concept of AI, the second brain, came from this person called Tiago Forte, and he was looking at it from a very theoretical point of view, saying this personal knowledge management, how do you use digital systems in a way that you can curate the data and make that data more useful. So it doesn't replace any of your standard sharing mechanisms, any of your standard storage mechanisms. All of that can remain absolutely the same. You can maintain your Confluence pages, you can maintain your iShare, you can maintain everything. But this is a system that you can get AI now to keep it in a place that you can be easily used. Okay, I have 5 minutes left, so I need to get a bit quicker on this. So let me come to the interesting part here. So this is a simple architecture, okay? So this is not a folder structure. This is not something which we just say, okay, AI, this is how things are. But this is a live brain in which what we are saying here is all the important meetings, it can pull up from my emails. It can pull up all the important content. We've got the MCP connectors to Confluence, to Jira, to Slack, and I tell it, right? So I've got my agents within this brain, and it's got a context window where you give it a context for every project. So the context is saying something like, for example, project A. These are the leads of this project A. These are where all these Confluence pages are stored for project A. So for each of my projects, I have a context page, and everything that the AI needs to know, Codex needs to know about that project is in that project directory. And then every time I want to work with Codex and I ask Codex something, I just tell Codex, make sure you have updated the README, make sure you have updated the context page, make sure you have updated the skills. So we have a set of skills that you can work on. You can create a lot of commands over this as well. So what happens here is it automatically, so every day, for instance, my agents here, in the second brain environment, can make sure that it's looked into the relevant project directories, it's updated all the project context and databases, made sure that everything that's important for me, because this is personalized for me. I have written the context, I have made it write the skills, and I have told it these are all the important things that every day in each of these projects you need to keep on top of and build it into this hierarchy, into this structure. So the next time I ask a question, I'll commit to it from here. So Cap, this one, actually, I've spoken about this. We've spoken about the personal leadership. So I'll talk about the leadership use cases, right? So every time I then want to use this, my second brain, I just go into Codex and say, okay, what's happening in this project? So Codex looks into the context, it looks into the skills, it says, okay, I need to apply these skills in order for me to extract these informations, and then it looks into the relevant directories and say, okay, yesterday there was this big escalation, this decision that happened, I don't know what the result was, maybe we'll wait for it today, or in today's meeting, this is what I need to follow up on, because that context is completely built in. And you can also add tags, so you tag people, okay? And when you have your personal one-to-one notes about different people and everything, these tags help AI very easily to pick up and say, if I ask, for instance, can you tell me all the concerns that are happening or all the things that are associated with this person, so I can go into a conversation with them and make sure that I'm really making the best of my half an hour. So then my second brain has all of that data, Codex goes in and then uses the tags to find out either one-to-one notes or in the meeting minutes or in my emails or in Confluence, everywhere this person is tagged and says, okay, these are all the important things for him or her, right? And then I can use that in my conversation. So these are just things that, I have a long way to go. Okay, I haven't perfected all of this. Each Bill, myself, and Edward, we are all in different places. Bill does quite a bit more that I need to pick up on as well. But what this actually helps, so some of the things that I have done is really to have a note. I love taking notes, right? So I keep taking every one-to-one, I've got like a list of notes that I have, and I maintain it on a daily basis. So next time I have a one-to-one or another meeting, I go back and refer. But it is still very cumbersome. So I've got a daily note agent that quickly, every day it curates my notes, puts it into the right place, moves it into the right people folders, right project folders. And then next day, if I want to access any project, it's all up to date with my yesterday's notes, right? So these are things that really make a difference for me because it helps me just to structure and organize and get information fast. It's not that information doesn't exist. I've been doing it for years now, like you're doing absolutely the same thing, but scaling and growing, the teams. But I'm trying to see, again, how can you do more, right? If I do this more, I can do more, right? I think, so that, am I almost at the end of it? So there are some advanced project level use cases we are going to look at. So I'll be working with Edward and he wants to push a bit more of these. And we need to see, again, there's always the trade-off between how much time you're investing versus the benefit. So we are going to have those discussions. But our next thing is to see how we can probably scale this out to more people, more leaders, maybe more projects, set up a project second brain rather than just a personal second brain for myself. We need to work. There are many, many ideas that we have. And I feel like, honestly, that's the exciting thing about AI, right? I was reading a blurb somewhere saying you go from becoming a product developer to a product manager, right? Because you are looking at use cases. You are really saying, okay, how do I want to use this? And Codex does a job for you, So what's next? So there are lots more things like what I said. We need to do more setup guides. We want to do more connector setups, do a leadership pilot, engineering pilots. But I'm fine with all of that. As of now, I'm just going to see how I can keep working on this to build up my context. The beautiful part about this is the more I work on it, the more content I feed it, the more context over time it has, right? It's really building up the knowledge. It's like our memory. See, our brain has evolved, our memory has evolved only because of our experiences. So we've had this for like how many of, I won't tell my age. People have not been telling today, so I'm also not telling, you know. But over n number of years, I have built up my knowledge, my memory, right? And so the more I use the second brain, the more I build in the context to it, I can already see in a few weeks down the line how much better it is doing and how much more relevant data it's able to give me. So maybe in a year's time, I can just tell it, write my monthly report for Bill, right? Just get it done. We'll see.
Crossed.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Anyway, that's about it. Yes. Thank you, everyone. See you.